Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
You're so welcome.
Mark, I've done 77 episodes of this podcast, and it's called the Yoga Life Podcast. Mm-hmm. But I've never asked anyone this question. What could it be? What is yoga?
You've never asked.
I've never asked.
77 podcasts on you. What the fuck?
I thought, and what better person to ask than yourself?
Yeah. What a beautiful question.
Thank you.
I can say that it was Krishnamacharya, Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, the teacher of B.K.S. Iyengar and the teacher of Pattabhi Jois, who are essentially the brands of yoga for this world. You know, the studio business of yoga is based on the teachings of Iyengar and Jois. Well, 80% of it is actually around the world. And it was Krishnamacharya, their teacher, that made it clear what is yoga. But even more importantly, he made it clear how does any individual do yoga in the way that is right for them, so that it is actually yoga. Right? So yoga is intimacy with reality itself. You want more language around that? Or should we just pause for 10 minutes on that?
Yeah, let's pause.
Yoga is direct intimacy with reality itself. Reality is a nurturing, regenerative force. I am that, you are that. You know, the power of this cosmos that brought this body into existence, that brought your body into existence, that brought every body into existence who's listening to this podcast. Reality brought you into form and is presently sustaining you. Life itself, you are that. This life is a pure intelligence. This life is unspeakable beauty. Everything in the natural world is, if you haven't noticed, but I think you have noticed, everything in the natural world is utter beauty. And you are of the natural world. You are the beauty. You don't have to get to beauty, you are the beauty. Furthermore, this body, your body, my body, is in a perfect, intrinsic harmony with the rest of the cosmos. My body has a perfect relationship with air. Right now, this body knows what it's doing with air. This body knows what it's doing with light. One scientist said if the sun disappeared, there'd be 8 more minutes of life. So we are sustained by light. You know? Literally, actually so. And water and the green realm, the plant kingdom, and the male-female collaboration, which is the nurturing power of this cosmos. Male-female collaboration, perfect intrinsic harmony, creates motherhood and fatherhood and creates new life. It creates the nurturing flow of life. So yoga is the participation in that. It's not to get to that because it's already given. I am the power of the cosmos. I don't have to get to it. I don't even have to realize it.
There's a slogan that I've heard before, which is practice and all is coming. What do you think? I was listening to Alan Watts this morning. I like to listen to him when I'm practicing. And he talked about the phenomenon of self-improvement and how in America, for example, and this filters through to Europe, most of the bookshelves are full of books about how to improve. Why do you think, or do you think this slogan, practice and all is coming, could be problematic?
It's totally problematic. The whole thing is based on a hoax. It's a profound manipulation of the human condition. This idea of becoming is the active denial of what you are, trying to get somewhere as if you're not somewhere. See, this is not yoga. And it's a slogan or a line used in the power structures of every kind, of, a fake promise of do my arbitrary method, do my arbitrary meditation, my arbitrary gymnastics, and all is coming. Like, I want to know what is coming, It's a hoax.
Is it because we're trying to make a one-size-fits-all, follow my program and therefore you'll get this result, or follow these movements and you get this result? And but then how do you say, for example, you practice at home on your own, which I do now. I don't go to studios anymore. Not because it suits my lifestyle. As you can see, I've got my girlfriend, I've got my dog.
Beautiful. Got a girlfriend and a dog. What more do you need?
So my time is, I have to prioritize my time differently, let's say. And I find that now I just practice on my own at home. But am I missing something?
I just want to clarify that the whole idea of becoming something, getting to a future sublime state that is promised by the power structures, by anybody selling you anything. If you buy this, you get that. This is the active denial of the plain wonder that you are. The power of this cosmos that is arising is this reality. Like, who could make a body? Who could make skin? Who could do breath? Who could create the perceivers perceiving and the mind that can think? How beautiful is all of this? And it's already in place perfectly. I go back to the prior statement. You are the power of the cosmos. It is arising as pure intelligence, this body, these perceivers, this mind, this breath, this sex. You are in perfect harmony with the rest of the cosmos. Harmony and dependence upon, in the context of this utter relatedness to the cosmos. Right? You are that. Clearly so. This is not a arbitrary statement. It's not a abstract statement. It's a fact. You're the power of the cosmos. Yoga is your embrace of that, acknowledgement, enjoyment of that. You could say participation in that. Actual and natural, daily embrace of what you are is yoga. Adapted to your needs, your body type, your age, and your health, and your cultural background. This is yoga. The idea of a self-improvement program, at its most benign, or becoming enlightened, trying to get to some place of future fulfillment that is promised by religious traditions and power structures of all kinds, secular and spiritual power structures selling you stuff. This is the hoax that we are all in. This hoax has created civilization. This hoax has created thought structures in us by which we imagine we're not there yet. We imagine that we are second to some great possibility, that I am second to somebody great or something great. And that is accompanied by I am superior to something. And we are in those thought structures that have been created by power holders of all kinds. in secular life, spiritual life, which is secular life.
I think the conditioning of self-improvement happens from a very young age, because in school, for example, it's not like you're learning for the joy of learning. You're learning to achieve something, to get a grade and to be top of the class.
Totally.
So all of that conditioning, then we reach adulthood and someone says to you, the teacher says to you in a class, this is not about self-improvement. So if it's not about self-improvement, why practice yoga?
We practice yoga because, in fact, we are restricted. It's possible in the great traditions. It is possible, and there are accounts of individuals who were told, "You're the power of the cosmos," and they go, "Oh shit! Of course." What was I thinking? And get out of jail free, walk scot-free. There are those cases. And in those cases, there's no question of yoga practice. If you're the power of the cosmos becomes simply obvious, and then clearly the situation of your life, you can see that life is arising as pure intelligence. You can see that this body, this flesh, is a pure intelligence. It is the unspeakable beauty of reality itself arising. It is in perfect harmony with air and light and water and green and male-female collaboration and stars, known and unknown stars, sun and moon. You go, oh, okay, good. Thanks a lot. I'm good. I'm good now. There is no question of yoga, to have your life.
Mm.
And of course that can come on a person at any time in their life. You cannot determine it. You cannot claim it to be so. And that's part of the hoax that is put on humanity, those people who say, I am guru, or I am a knower, our dear teacher Krishnamacharya saying anyone who says he is a guru is not a guru. A guru is not a yoga teacher is not a social identity, not a personal identity. It's not a status, it's not an authority, The yoga teacher or the guru is only the force of Mother Nature's nurturing in local community. It is not an identity of any kind. So if you make this claim, you're only doing it as a sort of as business to fool the people.
Sorry, go on.
My guru used to say, first you have to fool yourself before you can fool the people. So there's lots of that in our world, So
how do you think then, since Krishnamacharya's teachings, how do you think yoga has been misinterpreted by these gurus, by, you could call it the patriarchy? How has that manifested itself?
It's just the habit. You see, it's so ingrained in us, this assumption that spiritual transmission occurs from a knower, from a hierarchy, from someone who is senior to you. We call it the social dynamic of disempowerment, that whole arrangement, And that is the arrangement of the whole world. And it is not yoga. That arrangement is not yoga. It is religion at best. But it's temple religion. It's exploiting the suffering of the people. It is creating superstitious mind. Practice and all is coming as part of that. It is superstitious mind. Imagining that you are less and trying to become more. Appealing to a higher source, help me. It's like a drowning person going, help me, help me, hand up. All you have to do is put your hand down and swim. and the shore's 20 yards over there, and all is good. Swim, have your life. This hoax has been put on us. It has created civilization, frankly. I mean, here we are in Ireland. We could go into it.
Please.
Well, maybe, but the history of the manipulation of public with the God idea, and the priesthood that holds this exclusive access to God. The model of the perfect person implies that you are not perfect, and you're put in this arbitrary struggle of trying to become perfect, through the arbitrary methodologies that are given to you by the church and state, the tyranny of church and state, and the gurus who tell you to do this, struggle away with this self-improvement program, so one day you will be in the state that the perfect person is presumed to be in. First you have to fool yourself before you can fool the people, and that's been put upon us. And I'm not saying Christ or Buddha or Muhammad were such people. It's what came after them.
Mm-hmm. It's the original sin, for example. I remember when I was young and my mum said, you don't have to go to church if you don't want to. And my argument was, I don't feel like I'm a sinner. I do bad things sometimes, which I won't go into, but when I was younger, we do things that we're not proud of. But I don't think I am born in a bad way and I need to repent on my knees for someone else to forgive me. And I always used to find it bizarre the amount of respect, particularly older people, would pay the priests. And I'd be like, who is this geezer? Who is this priest? Like, who is he behind the collar, behind this costume? And I was always very suspicious. And then when people were telling me not to go to church, I didn't. But what I will say is, though, I really missed the community.
Yeah, of course.
And that's the thing of having a personal yoga practice, that I love to be on my own and not be distracted or feel like I'm competing with someone else. But I do miss the being with other people.
Of course.
And it's funny you say about, if you think you're a guru, then you're not a guru. And that makes sense to me. But what I have noticed is when I first started doing yoga, I hated it so much because I really resented the teacher. It was a Bikram class, and he would say, you can't drink any water, or you can't do your version of the pose, you have to do it exactly this way. And it reminded me of being in school, the headmaster, the priest, and I thought, I don't want to do it at all, if this is what it means. But what I've realized the way I teach is that people listen to this podcast, they see me on Instagram and they see the stuff that I'm not good at or proud of, and it does, part of me feels a bit insecure because I feel like we're the same, therefore what can I teach them? But it's changing the philosophy in my head to be more like, what can we teach each other? And actually the person, sorry to Mark, but I have to give a shout out to someone, to a girl called Hannah, Hannah is responsible for this happening. And I was in a teacher training last weekend talking to the trainees, talking about Tantra, and Hannah chips in and gives her insights on Tantra, and I learnt so much from her, and that's when your name came up. And it made me think. I went home to Rach and I said, wow, I think I'm teaching people stuff, but I leave knowing more than probably they do because they're teaching me stuff. But again, I do that with a slight feeling of vulnerability.
Good. Vulnerability is good because it's honest. There's a text that said, what should be the attitude of the teacher? And the teacher's attitude is, I'm not qualified to do this, but I've been asked to, so I'm going to do my best. There's more to it. So I'll do my best and I'll probably make mistakes, but I've been asked to, so I'm going to do my best. So the teacher is one who shares what you know. You do not take on the presumption of the knower. Where you're the right hand of the master and now and the master's gone and now you've got it. This is the hoax. So that we share. We are the teacher, the guru, is no more than a friend and no less than a friend. That defines this matter. And as I was saying before, the public can hardly imagine spiritual transmission occurring without this hierarchy, without this imposition of hierarchy, and without the idea of moving towards some future ideal, becoming. There's no requirement to become. I emphasize again, you are the power of the cosmos. There is no getting to it. God has realized you, to put that in that religious framework. God has realized you. Here is God. Where's the question of realizing God? And my language is, you are the power of the cosmos, arising as pure intelligence and unspeakable beauty. This is the given situation. And we are simply sharing the practices that allow you to participate in this fact. This is not an abstract statement, you're the power of the cosmos. You are the power of the cosmos. Now there are these yogas that evolved in the ancient world, in the pre-doctrinal world, that were given to us, and Krishnamacharya brought it through into the modern time. And we have those now. And where restriction remains in us in body and mind, that's when we have this gift of yoga to reduce those restrictions or throw out those restrictions. There we have yoga. But as I say, there are a few very rare people who are not restricted at all in body and mind. However, the way we've been socialized by civilization in Ireland and everywhere else, we are deeply restricted by the social patterning of the society that we have been born into. So in most cases, in 1 in a billion people don't have this problem, but the rest of us do. We are restricted.
You mentioned the word condition there. It's like a baby is close to being a yogi because they just...
I have 4 grandchildren. I had to count them. A new one just came a couple of months ago. And to look upon these unrestricted bodies and minds, there it is. And what I say, if the parents practicing yoga, yogi and yogini, lifting off these restrictions that the hoax of enlightenment has created, the hoax of God as a future realization has created on humanity, then we'll allow these children as best as we can to thrive in a family life, in a social circumstance whereby they are not restricted at all. They can have their life. And I think that is the best thing that parents can do, is to maintain their adult intimacy together, including their sexual intimacy together. A life of intimacy, That's what yoga is. It's the embrace of life itself. It's to be intimate with life. That's the definition of yoga, to be intimate with life as it is, life as it is given, the power of this cosmos that is given.
The challenge with speaking about God and sex in Ireland is, one, the connotations about God, the Catholic Church, the patriarchy, the power structure there, and also sex being, as we mentioned downstairs, in Ireland, I'm putting England in the bracket as well, how we are quite sexually repressed compared to other cultures.
Well, no, all cultures.
All cultures.
I don't think Ireland has to single itself. I mean, you do have your dark history, and certainly you can go into that and say, oh my God, it's terrible, and it is terrible, but, go to India. It's the most misogynist country in this world. Dreadful denial of life. sexual suppression. You go to any country.
Yeah, okay.
So Ireland doesn't need to single itself out. This is worldwide civilization and how it occurred through power structures and wealth creation through power structures. Yoga belongs in a time prior to that, prior to wealth creation, prior to power structure and the male knower, womenless men who were telling the world how to live their lives, you know. Sure, you had that in Ireland, but that's how the whole world has been civilized. That's how we destroyed indigenous culture all over this world, you know. Womenless men who raped the planet and raped the women, who controlled the women, you know, who had wanted access to women, but by controlling them, even owning them. You know? And this is everywhere. And we now live in a time where we've taken the lid off this bizarre arrangement, this human insanity. You know, clearly, life is male and female, arising as equals and opposites. Clearly so. Collaborating, you know, where one empowers the other. And from that, new life comes, of course. You know, what is the power, the intelligence, the beauty that can create a new life? You know, I'm not saying everybody has to go out and create a baby. I'm certainly not saying that. But I'm saying that's how powerful the male-female collaboration is, and how necessary it is for a healthy life, for a sane life. You know,
What's the balance at the moment? Would you say? I can only talk about Ireland, but maybe talk about Ireland. The balance between the masculine and the feminine. Where is it swaying, would you say, at this time?
Well, I don't really care which way it sways. What I care about is that what life is doing, life, capital L, life, my life, reality itself, is the perfect harmony. I don't care too much about the politics of, you know, the dysfunction of male, female, and the power structures swaying and backwards and forwards. I mean, this is all infantile, you know. It's not the point at all. The point is that male and female are in a perfect union, a perfect harmony, a perfect beauty, a perfect intelligence, which is the nurturing power of life itself. You know, it produces motherhood, fatherhood, and new life. You don't have to create a baby, but if you can practice this intimacy of opposites in your own embodiment, this is what yoga is, the union of opposites in your own embodiment, strength that is utterly receptive. If you can practice this male-female collaboration in your own embodiment, which is the inhale and exhale perfectly in union, then you can practice it with somebody else in same-sex or opposite-sex intimacy. It applies to all sexual preferences, any gender identification or none at all. You know, it has no consequence. You are male-female. Everybody living is male-female. Every living form is male and female. A flower on the altars of the Christian church is sex happening, is the exchange of male-female chemistries. A tree is male-female, the trunk ascending, going into the soft foliage that is utterly receptive. The foliage requires the strength of the trunk. The trunk requires the soft foliage receiving nutrients, you know. Without the foliage, the leaves unfolding in the radiance of life in all directions, the trunk would wither. Without the trunk, there could be no foliage. This is the arrangement of all life. I am that life, you are that life. Everybody living and walking and breathing is that life. They deserve to have intimacy with this arrangement. That is God's arrangement. God's arrangement. God arranges life like this if we have the idea of God in our thought structures, in our cultural framework. And fair enough. And it is time now, and I'd like to suggest that it's not such a challenge for Ireland to put the two words God and sex together. They belong together. This is God's method on earth. Sex is God's method. And just to go into the yogic structuring of the body a little bit, that male and female come together and create one cell of life. It's called the heart, the hridaya. And one cell is created. And within 3 days, you have a whole spine, a whole column of ascending and descending energies. And then the head arises, and the arms and the legs arise from one cell, the hridaya, the heart. It is created from the perfect union of male-female, the giving and the receiving of life. Right? This is our situation, And yoga is the participation in that arrangement. And, the inhale, exhale reveals the heart. The place of perfect union of the inhale with exhale, of strength with receptivity, is the heart. It's called hridaya. And in the union of strength receiving with somebody else in same-sex or opposite-sex intimacy, the heart is revealed. It's the same thing, you see. In fact, sex is the heart's activity. Sex creates the heart, creates life. And sex is the participation in the heart. Right? And it is everybody's birthright to have that participation, to enjoy that participation, to acknowledge their life as being holy, as being God, as arising in and as the power of the cosmos, as pure intelligence, unspeakable beauty and perfect harmony. This is the fact of our existence. This is not an abstract spiritual idea spoken to try to provoke you to try to realize it. You don't have to realize it. You are it. Yoga is participation only in this that we are. Right? Now, this is a conversation in Ireland, in our own time, in this birth, your birth. Here we are having this beautiful, important conversation in Ireland. And this is a conversation for the sincere people in the religious structures as they are now. For sincere Roman Catholics and sincere Protestants who love Christ, who love each other. And now for all people, to give all people the practical tools of actualizing the beautiful ideals of Christian liturgy, for example. Give them the whole body prayer to life, That's what yoga is, whole body prayer to life. And if we have the thought structures of God and Christ, whole body prayer to God and Christ is a requirement, Krishnamacharya, as a religious scholar, profound knowledge of religion and humanity in East and West, and a profound knowledge of yoga. And his scholarly statement was that yoga was the necessary practical means to actualize the beautiful ideals of sacred text. This is his statement, and it's a scholarly statement. Now, so far the way yoga has been popularized in the naivety of gymnastics and this, struggling of the body in a power structure of having somebody who knows yoga and you don't know it, and you have to do it, and all is coming, all that stuff, that hoax is not it, of course. And, to speaking to my yoga friends around the world who have become excited or interested in asana and the popular forms of asana that have been branded in the US as styles and commodity, that has been the method of distributing this information around the world. For all those folk, it's fair enough, I deeply respect their sincere interest in doing whatever Mr. Iyengar or Patabi taught, fair enough, But if you are in that field of interest, I just want to emphasize that your teacher is Krishnamacharya, and because he was the teacher of B.K.S. Iyengar and K. Patabi Joyce. And it is time now for us to take the principles that Krishnamacharya brought forth from the great tradition and put them into these brands and styles that derived from him. The trouble was that they were just young boys when they were with him, very young boys. I mean, Mr. Iyengar, 21 when he left and stayed in Pune. And after 21, he had to devise his own ideas. And he had no further contact with his teacher, Krishnamacharya. So yoga got basically dislodged from the great tradition. So these principles of how yoga is direct intimacy with God, direct intimacy with the power of reality. Yoga is the way that you actualize whatever has inspired you. So it's relevant to all cultural points of view, all religious points of view. That's why it traveled in the ancient world and was adopted by all religious groups, all language groups, and now it's going through the modern world. But I emphasize that these principles from the great tradition that Krishnamacharya brought forth must be there. Otherwise, it's not actually yoga. At best, it's gymnastics. It's the fitness industry and so forth. And it's all fine, that early enthusiastic interest, the early experiment of yoga in the West. However, there are some really essential technical principles that have been left out of what has been popularized. And, everyone who's doing Iyengar yoga or Bikram yoga or Patabi Joy, Ashtanga Vinyasa, it's all fine, except we must include the principles that the teacher of the teachers, or the guru of Mr. Iyengar, what he brought through. And there's a fairly thin line of that information in the world because, we got started somewhat after these brands had been firmly fixed in the US and before they traveled to Europe. They were fixed ideas. My teacher used to call it mediocre gymnastics, statement from Desikachar. If you want to see gymnastics, go and see what the Chinese are doing as gymnastics, or, like gymnastics in the, So it's the popularization of gymnastics. And it's certainly stimulating. And there is something in the form of asana, But there's a small education to be done, and that is the principles of breath in asana, the principles of inhale merging with the exhale, of strength with receptivity as the very purpose of the asana. The central feature of asana is the breath, and even the purpose of the asana is breath, this matter of strength, that is the exhale, and receptivity, which is the inhale. It's strength, hatha yoga. Asana is hatha yoga, the non-dual tantra of direct intimacy with reality itself. And we could go into it how Ramanuja of the 10th century, clarified the excesses of Vedanta, of Advaita Vedanta, Advait, not two, only one, non-dual, only God. Ramanuja came and said, there must be yoga to actualize Advaita, to actualize God, actualize the non-dual state. And that there must be the male-female collaboration, the family life must be there, intimacy with life. Men and women as equals and opposites, and same-sex or opposite-sex intimacy must be there, for the non-dual state, for our reality to be realized. So that's why yoga is this very easy and ordinary, daily, anybody can do it. So actual and natural, daily, non-obsessive practice. I say, like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, do your yoga at home.
Mm-hmm.
The problem of going to studios is that you're doing somebody else's yoga. You know, you're doing somebody else's patterning that is imposed upon you. And it seems harmless enough, except the male Brahman muscular struggle that's been popularized as yoga hurts the body. It injures the joints. It can create sudden or gradual injury in the system. And it's not good. It's kind of a mistake that's happened. And we can now correct that in the yoga world. And for the rest of the public who are intimidated by yoga.
How do we, and this is a direct question from someone else actually, how do we practically, or in a practical way, become more authentic yoga teachers? Say, for example, if we're a teacher in a studio teaching watered down gymnastics, which I feel that I was saying to someone today, Rachel, today, that I feel like a bit shallow when I'm teaching, a bit like, and that's actually why. And I was looking at your courses that you have coming up. Like I need to learn a bit more, and I have moments where I feel like I'm teaching people to honor themselves, to realize that they don't need anything, but then I fall into this trap of, okay, here's how you do a handstand, and then here's some tips about how to do it better, and I fall into that thing of wanting more, progressing, and then I pass that on to people, and without me realizing it, I'm tricking them into thinking that maybe they're not as good as I am because they can't do a handstand, and I find when I find myself there, I feel like, oh shit, I've fallen into that shallow teacher again.
Yeah. I love your honesty. I love your vulnerability. And I'm saying, yes, there is a need to take the principles that Krishnamacharya brought forth from the great tradition and put it into the styles and brands that derived from him. He is our grandfather. I am his grandchild. We could say Desikachar and Iyengar and Pattabhi Jois were his sons, his yoga sons. Desikachar, his actual son. Desikachar was my teacher. I did a book for him called The Heart of Yoga, Developing a Personal Practice. And these are the principles that any sincere person can learn and place it into the context of the yoga that they already know and love. And that's not hard to do. It takes a little care, but it's not hard learning. You can learn it quite quickly. And those who do that become no longer mere yoga instructors of passing on other people's patterning. And they become yoga teachers, capital Y, capital T. A yoga teacher, somebody who can empower another person to be intimate with their life, to be at one in body and mind with their life, with the power of the cosmos that is their life, the intelligence, beauty, and harmony that is their life. This is what a yoga teacher does in local community, not an authority, not a knower, just sharing, loving, caring for other people. Who can teach yoga? 3 qualifications. 1, you have a good teacher yourself. 2, you practice yourself. 3, you care about others. See, so you do have those qualifications, and I would suggest to you and all the yoga teachers in the world, you're hungry to become not yoga instructors but yoga teachers. Really care. These are sincere people. You're a sincere person. You care for other people, and you do want to be equipped with the full spectrum of yoga practice and understanding so that you can adapt yoga to the needs of each person and not put them on this merry-go-round of a fake push towards a future result with, fake arbitrary knowledge that has been put into Brandon style, in the West, and then even goes back into India now. as a phenomena,
I have to ask you, Mark, because this is something I fell into at the start of teaching, adjustments. I used to do adjustments all the time, and I used it as a way to. I had nervous energy when I teach classes, more so than I do now. And my thing was, right, within the first 5 minutes of the class starting, I'm going to adjust someone, because if I don't, then I'm just not going to touch anyone. And once I adjust someone, I feel like I'm a certain spatial dominance. Yeah. I feel like I am a real teacher because I've seen something, and other people can see me adjusting, and all this thing. Yeah. And what I realized then, as well as, and this wasn't the reason, but being a man and in a yoga class where it's mostly women, in this culture where if someone accuses you of something, then you could be done for, especially with social media and how information can spread. That started me thinking, should I still do adjustments? And so that was the first seed of doubt in my head. And the second seed of doubt, which is more important, is I don't want someone pushing me into something I can't do. Because when I first started in yoga, I used to try and sit cross-legged, and I couldn't do it. I remember the teacher coming behind me, putting their heel of the hands on my inner thighs and pushing my thighs down, and really hurt me. And I thought, oh, you feel like the priest again. This is, what are you, because I don't touch people anymore.
If I could just thank you for your sincerity. One very clear, emphatic statement. There should be no adjustments of people in yoga classes, in yoga teaching. It is based on a false premises. So the principle of yoga teaching and the creation of yoga standards, do not touch your student. Do not adjust them. And the reasons for this are profound. They are yogic reasons. You allow the breath and the bandha to do the alignment of the asana. If you're using any outside force, either the force of a teacher adjusting somebody else, adjusting the student, or the force of momentum, this velocity, mass moving through space and jumping from one posture to another, forcing the body to go into positions it cannot go in with breath and bandha, then you're injuring the body, right? Or not using gravity, not using props and so forth to try to approximate a posture, a classical posture. This is the wrong way. You're going down the wrong alley. You're hurting people. But even more than all of that is say, we do not interfere with a person's prana, a person's life energy. We allow them to flow. My teacher would say, prana has its own intelligence and movement, When the breath and body are moving, breath, body and mind moving in a unitary movement, then the pranas flow. Right? So we're not to put any imposition on the natural flow of a person's life. So this is a kind of a strict rule, Do not, so be relieved of all of that. All the yoga teachers out there, they're doing adjustments. There's even people, hosting workshops on adjustment workshops, and attempting to sort of validate these early experiments of yoga in the West and validating the brand of yoga, and having even lofty academic arguments of, why there's some sort of improvement in the Western yoga. It's not at all. These modern day brands of yoga are obsessed with straight lines, putting straight lines on the human body.
Yeah.
There are no straight lines in Mother Nature. We are all spirals. We are curves. We are like flowers unfolding. This in the radiance that is life. This is what is the form of life, the form of Mother Nature, And along comes male mind and then tries to put order into the beauty of Mother Nature, the beauty of these organic flowing systems that are full of prana, full of the nurturing force of life. So don't adjust. Just give people correct instruction. Asana is the matter of strength that is receiving. It's the merge of the inhale with the exhale, and we're using the body movement to facilitate that union of inhale with exhale.
Someone might argue, playing devil's advocate here, that, well, there's no intimacy there because touch is so important. What would you say to that?
A yoga teacher is helping a person to go out and have intimacy with life. You know, give a person intimacy of their own embodiment and the opposites within their own embodiment, which is strength, that is receptive, that is the male-female qualities of your own life in your own body. And then that gives you the capability of going out and being truly intimate with somebody else, you know. This is what's needed now in our personal life and public life. And if you're using a yoga class as a substitute for that intimacy, then that's deeply problematic.
And also, Mark, I think that the word intimacy doesn't have to mean touching. Like I know a high-profile teacher in modern yoga who he will never shake hands with anyone, never hug anyone, only does fist bumps. This is the thing; he does fist bumps, and I thought, okay, well that's problematic. I mean, it's kind of a shame, really, that would come to that. And I will still, like, if someone wants to give me a hug, I'll give them a hug, put my arm around someone in a photograph,
of course,
all that stuff, because that's me what I do with a friend.
Yeah,
and as opposed to I have to touch someone in a class, but also being intimate. For people who are maybe thinking about sex and touching and stuff, it can be looking at someone in the eye.
Of course.
And actually listening to them.
Yeah. I say a yoga teacher has attained ordinariness. Attained ordinariness. Yeah. You're an ordinary person. People hug each other in ordinary social circumstances. You say hello and there's eye contact. A teacher is a friend. No more than a friend, no less than a friend. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is that in the yoga teaching circumstance, there shouldn't be this adjustment.
Yeah.
No touch, and leave the pranas alone. Let them flow in their own intelligence. There might be some light directional indication, you know, like inhale, lift the chest, exhale, flatten the abdominals, you know, some light directional indication. That's all, but no gross adjustment at all. And the yoga class can and does become, you know, there's no intimacy out there in the streets, out there in the apartments, you know, of the city. So you go to yoga class and huddle together and wait for the teacher to come and lie on you in your Paschimottanasana, you know. And just a sort of a sad, sort of a funny story, but a sad story of a woman friend of mine in Los Angeles who loved going to class because she looked forward, a single woman, you know. The problem of our urban society is people in the prime of their life that cannot find appropriate mutuality, you know, intimacy with life. And the reasons for that are deep, you know, the religious culprits who glamorized celibacy as some sort of superior state and denied the feminine in their role of authority. You know, all of that has been taken off the people. Your birthright is to be intimate with life. Our cities are full of people who cannot find suitable mutuality. So this dear woman would go to a class and look forward to the time where the teacher would come and lie on her in forward bend, as they do, you know. Help her go more deeply into Paschimottanasana. One day the teacher didn't do that and chose a prettier girl next to her. And the woman was devastated. See, this is such a cultural fault. You know.
That's a shame.
That you know, it's not just the yoga world. You know, the yoga world is just another environment of misogyny. Frankly, you know, it's another environment of public control and exploiting the gullibility of the people. You know, sadly, yoga is just more of the same. But that cultural fault is everywhere, where we are doing everything other than having intimacy with life. That's the problem. Everything is a substitute for intimacy. We're being sold everything as a substitute. We're being sold cars and fashion. Everything is a trick to make you help you feel better. What makes us feel better is by feeling better. Feeling better and then feeling better. Allow this body to become the feeling mechanism that it is, to become receptive through the crown and frontal line of the body all the way to the genitals, And, then we become potentially receptive of our intimate partner in a way that's not there if we don't have the pre-doctrinal yogas of intimacy with life.
Yeah, and intimacy with life, intimacy with yourself. Jenny's lucky, but you're also lucky to meet Jenny Keane tonight. And Jenny is someone who, I'm giving Jenny a shout out as well. She's been on the podcast a couple of times. She is someone who embodies that. And when you meet Jenny, she will give you a big hug, big kiss, and you think, wouldn't it be great if everyone was like that? Wouldn't it be great if people just unashamedly themselves and out, and we could all be comfortable to be ourselves?
Right. Look, I think you'd be surprised, Kevin. It's very easy to teach a yoga according to the needs of each person and give them that practice straight up, where the principles of the great tradition are given in one situation, one class with a person. And you get them to go and practice that on a daily basis. Immediately, a person starts to feel intimate with life, starts to feel, I am who I am what I am, and I'm enjoying my life. I have an Irish friend here, her name is Lorraine. Just 2 or 3 classes, and she's saying, I didn't enjoy my life. I didn't know how to enjoy my life. And now I'm walking around, wow, who am I? I'm enjoying my life. Before, she had the attitude of, God has given me this life, I suppose I better do it and please him, and, I better get on with things. And everything she was doing was a duty. Even she'd go for a walk on the beach, and it was like 10 lengths of the beach as a kind of a duty, and now I have to go and do the next self-improvement thing, And that she got this yoga, and immediately she started to feel intimate with life and the potential of being intimate with somebody else. And it can be given very quickly. I want to emphasize that the principles of teaching standards we've published in the Heart of Yoga on our website, heartofyoga.com, and they're all there. They're called the teaching standards. And these principles are there that we need as teachers in our world. And they're not different from, they're just common sense principles, and they apply to anybody who's teaching any kind of yoga at all. So I want to recommend that people look at those. And I emphasize that yoga is thousands of years old. It was shamanic practice from non-hierarchical, egalitarian societies. And it was the way that each and every ordinary person became intimate with their own wonder, their own power, their own beauty, And it evolved over thousands of years. It was so useful. It got codified in this vast body of literature called the Tantras from the 8th to the 13th century. They were there, and they flourished throughout India and Tibet. And then orthodoxy, male autocracy, power structure, then obliterated them, took them out of the public's visibility after the 13th century. Krishnamacharya, who was born into a family of Vedanta scholars and a profound, learned young man, and he went to Varanasi, the hub of the Hindu Tantras, the learning, and is at universities there for 11 years. And he was stuck with this. His own Acharya of Vedanta said there must be yoga. There must be the family life to realize the Advait, the non-dual state. So he needed to learn yoga, and he looked around India and Tibet and found there was very little of yoga teaching that he could rely upon with the same sort of academic precision something that you could depend upon as being sound, because yoga did sort of become business, like people hobbling together 200-hour course and calling it yoga, So he needed a reliable source. And he, by reputation, he heard of Rama Mohan Brahmacari, because even in Tibet, yoga had sort of become invisible and had been confined to sort of hermitage-type situations. Even the Tibetan Buddhists pushed out the tantras from their own lineages, So there was this yogi on Lake Manasarovar called Rama Mohan Brahmacari. He went there, and he must have been really a good guy, because Krishnamacharya lived with his wife and family in a cave there in Lake Manas. And what I say, he rescued the yoga tantras from almost invisibility in this world. And at some point, his teacher said, now you go and you bring this yoga into the world. And he did. He went to Mysore, and he went to the Maharaja Mysore, who became his student and his patron, and that's where he taught the young men, Mr. Iyengar and Patabi Joyce. And so this intention now is to bring yoga into the whole world and give it to all the people, not just the yoga scene as it is, but all sincere religious people, or all sincere non-religious people. They're just as sincere. They've rejected religion for the same sort of sincere reasons, and now take a position of atheists and agnostics or whatever. But they too want to feel better. They want to enjoy their life. They want to know their own power, their own intelligence, their own beauty, that is life itself. So I just want to acknowledge that this work that came through Krishnamacharya has really just gotten started. We've sort of been diverted in our attention by the yoga gymnastics that was commodified in the US and turned into brand and style. But we're all intelligent people. We're like you're sincere, and you looked into the popular styles, but now you want the real deal. You want to be a teacher, a capital Y, capital T teacher, and care about people and empower them. And you want the full spectrum of cards, to play with. At the moment, you've got a glossy pack of cards, some brand or style, and it looks good, but there's 5 cards missing. And the game never seems to resolve. There's something sort of wrong with it.
Yeah.
You put the entire spectrum of yoga practice in, then you've got a full pack of cards, and the game resolves every time you practice.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to give to the world now, and finish the job that Krishnamacharya started. Recently we went to Lake Manasarovar. I always wanted to do it because Krishnamacharya had been there, and his son Desikachar, he went late in his life to pay respects to this ancient place of origin of yoga. And I'm so glad we did it. We sort of did it as a gesture of gratitude. All the yogis from the West, we go to Kailash and walk around Kailash for 3 days, and go to Lake Manasarovar and found the cave where Krishnamacharya would have lived with his teacher. And it was very important thing for me and my friends to do. And we felt much gratitude, each footstep going around the mountain. But to my surprise, I felt these ancient beings there, especially the women Dakinis, who have been written out of the social history, the religious history of Tibet and India, because from the 13th century onward, it was all about male power structure, male celebrities. They are the ones that are remembered in history. So I found these ancient beings sort of expressing gratitude to us that we were doing this, that we were holding the dharmas and loving them, respecting them, loving our early brothers and sisters who were the yogis and the yoginis who held yoga in this world, and taking it and then bringing it into the world. And it was like bringing a garland of gratitude from Ireland and Australia, New Zealand, US, Europe, everywhere, and taking it around Kailash saying, thank you, thank you. But then the ancient ones of Kailash thanked us for holding their treasure that had almost disappeared. You know, in the recent history of the Chinese colonization of Tibet, there's a vulgar story in itself, but beyond that, it had still disappeared through the imposition of male power structure on yoga, which is male and female as equals and opposites, where one empowers the other in an endless mutual exchange. You see, this is religious life. This is life, participation in life as it is. And it had seemed to have disappeared, and I think Krishnamacharya's guru would have foresaw the possibility that this could disappear from humanity altogether in the monster of the secular, imposition on the planet Earth. So this garland of gratitude was returned, the gratitude we felt, and we hold this, and everybody that we teach who receives this and then continues to teach it in your communities, in your towns and cities around in Ireland and around the world, they are part of that garland of gratitude. That this great gift is held, still held and alive by living, good-hearted people who are passing it on. And I do see that happening in the world, in all kinds of unexpected towns and cities in Europe and everywhere, in Africa, everywhere. There are these good people doing their best to pass it on. And Krishnamacharya, Desikachar, his son, would say, anybody who is a sincere student of my father, who does their best to pass it on, are in the Guru Parampara of my father. What is the Guru? It's a vast cultural, ancient enterprise that came through that almost disappeared. And Krishnamacharya rescued it from obscurity and brought it out in the open. And we have it now. And I'm saying these principles need to be included in all the popularization of yoga. And let's get serious about yoga.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that hopefully tonight I get a chance to come to one of your practices. If I can get my classes covered.
Find a dog sitter.
Find a dog sitter.
Come along.
So, Mark, it's been an honour, a pleasure. I hope we get to meet again, and thank you for all your knowledge and for taking the time to come to my home.
Yeah, and thank you for holding this and feeling the beauty of what is yoga and doing your best. And thank you for being so humble, non-dogmatic, and you're open-minded in your stand. You're not doing the usual game of being a knower, tricking the people into trying to know what you know, the social dynamic of disempowerment. That whole thing doesn't work. Yeah. We just share yoga as obvious equals. As I said, it's almost impossible for the public to imagine that spiritual transmission can occur without that power structure, without a hierarchy. But indeed it is possible. Indeed it is necessary for that power structure not to be there, because there's no transmission in that power structure. Then the only transmission is doubt. The only transmission is that power structure. And the golden cage of that power structure. So it's all out in the open now, and we're born in a time in Ireland and everywhere else where we can have this conversation. And I'm glad to be having it with you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks so much.
Thank you.